Hello, and welcome to this presentation all about the changes in the APA from the 6th edition to the 7th edition. This is hosted by Christine Woods. I am the Regional Librarian for St. Leo University and the Virginia region. So it's been 10 years since the last edition came out. The 7th edition came out in October 2019, and you've probably started hearing about it in January 2020. So what's changed? There are more examples and easier guidelines for citing online sources, for example, social media, podcasts, and YouTube videos. It is recommended that the singular they is used for more inclusive and bias-free language. There are specific formatting guidelines for student papers compared to academic or professional papers, and there is a sample paper. And there are some additional small changes in how to cite sources. When it comes to citing sources, more guidelines have been added that make citing online sources easier and clearer. In total, there are 114 examples provided, ranging from books and periodicals to audiovisuals and social media. For each reference category, an easy template is provided to help you understand and apply the citation guidelines. First change is that the publisher location is no longer included in the reference list. Many students had trouble finding this information, and in these days and times it is so easy to look this information up if it is needed. Additional research could be done using the internet. The in-text citations are shortened right away from the very beginning of the paper. If there is a work with 3 or more authors, it is now shortened right from the first citation. You only include the first author's name and et al. Surnames and initials for up to 20 authors instead of only 7 should be provided in the reference list. If a source is authored by more than 20 authors, only the first 19 authors and the last author are included. In between the 9th and the last author, you place ellipses to indicate that the names are omitted. DOIs are formatted now as a URL, which could be used as a hyperlink. Most journal articles and books have a DOI assigned to them. This unique link is stable, which means it doesn't change over time and makes retrieving a source easier for readers. DOIs are now to be formatted the same as URLs, and the label DOI is no longer used. This is very important because as you are reading a student's paper, you can click on the hyperlink and immediately see the original source. URL also no longer preceded by retrieved from unless the retrieval date is needed because the frequency of the changes in that source. So as an example, Wikipedia has been given as an example, but honestly that's not a really good source to use, but it is an example of a page that could change over time. The website name is included unless it is exactly the same as the author's name, which is pretty rare, and the web page titles are italicized. Ebooks are formatted, but the device that it is used on or the platform is no longer included in the reference. The publisher is included in the reference, and the DOI is formatted as we discussed previously. Clear guidelines are provided for citing contributors other than authors and editors. The contributor appears in the author position, and the role of the contributor is added in parentheses after their name. For example, Jones, comma, P, and then director. This is very important because with the new social media and lots of different forms of information, understanding who is responsible for the information or giving credit to somebody who's put a lot of hard work into it is very important. Inclusive and bias-free language. There are updated guidelines. Writing inclusively and without bias is the new standard, and APA's new publication manual contains a separate chapter on this topic. The guidelines provided by APA help authors reduce bias around topics such as gender, age, disability, racial and ethnic identity, and sexual orientation, as well as being sensitive to labels and describing individuals at the appropriate level of specificity. The singular they or their is endorsed as a gender-neutral pronoun. Avoid using he or she to refer to people of unspecified gender. As an example, a researcher's career depends on how often they are cited. Each examiner submitted their assessment. Instead of using adjectives as nouns to label groups of people, descriptive phrases are generally preferred. Respect the language that people use to describe themselves and be aware that language changes over time. As example, people living in poverty instead of saying poor, and transgender people. When possible, give specific characteristics rather than broad categories. The appropriate choice depends on the context. For example, people aged 65 to 75. For example, Vietnamese, Cambodian, and Thai participants. There are new student-specific guidelines for the papers. In the 7th edition, APA decided to provide separate format guidelines for professional and student papers. For both types, a sample paper is included, and there are some notable changes for student papers. In the 6th edition, only the use of Times New Roman was recommended. In the 7th edition, there's more flexibility regarding fonts. The most important thing is that the font should be easy to read for everyone. So instead of allowing simply Times New Roman 12-point, which is the preferred method, you could also use these other fonts and sizes, which are easy to read. In student papers, a running head stating the paper title at the top of every page is no longer required. Updated heading levels 3, 4, and 5 are updated to improve readability, and all headings are now bold and title case. Here are some recommended resources. If you email me, I can send you a copy of this so that the links will be active. I got this presentation from Scribr, which is a very good source and has been approved by the main campus library director and has provided us with some valuable information. And also the OWL Purdue APA Style Guide is very popular with a lot of professors. You may also look at the APA Style Guide, and the address is listed there. One more question that I would like to answer is that citation generators can be used as long as they are used properly. I always demonstrate to students how to use them properly, which is that they should never use the autofill mode, but always use the manual form to create the citation. If you are demonstrating to students or describing the process, always tell students to be careful to enter the correct information. For example, garbage in, garbage out. So as long as the manual entry mode is used and students are careful about filling it in, it can be very helpful. I recommend that students purchase the APA publication manual. As you can see, there are several different versions, and professors may want to have a copy of their own as well. Thank you for participating and listening to this presentation. If you have further questions, please contact me. I would be glad to conduct lessons or provide additional guides or create videos for you. And just let me know by emailing christine.woods@stleo.edu.